It's been a minute, I think, since we last talked. There have been lots of, like, ups and downs on this journey, but it's so weird. Like, tomorrow, I'm leaving for Colorado. Haven't been back since I graduated and pieced out. So I'm going to a wedding, right? And something that, like, happens in life, I feel like, is that I end up getting, like, more tanned on my arms than I do on my legs, especially since I'm getting my tattoo removed. You're supposed to not really expose it to sun. So I've been, like, doing my best to put on sunscreen on my arms, and I wear just, like, long pants when I go running anyway, so I haven't, like, laid out at all to, like, I feel like sometimes that balances the like top half being like way more tan than the bottom half. So since I haven't been doing that, I just put on self tanner on my legs, no other part of my body, and I don't know how this is gonna turn out.
Interesting. How exactly does self tanner work? Like, is it a color? Like, how do you make sure it matches the right way?
So it's like a foaming thing, and I think you can pick like light, medium, or dark. Obviously, I think I stuck to like light to medium, and then you like put it on as a foam, and it says to leave it on for 1 to 4 hours. So I'll probably take it off around like the 2-hour mark and just hope that it's not like super streaky. Otherwise, I'm like, I don't know what to do because my arms are very tan and my bottom half looks like the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Wear tights. I don't know. Stockings.
No, that's actually
stockings.
A good idea. We'll see. Also, too, like, how do I handle it if this did go horribly and I can't get it off? I guess I'll just wear long pants.
Man, white people probs.
It's a struggle, and I can feel my like knee armpits like getting sweaty because it's currently 90 degrees in Boston. So like am I just like dripping sweat down the bottom of my legs, and like that's just gonna screw it all up?
Knee armpits. Okay.
Knee pits. Your knee pits.
Yeah, your knee pits. Back of the knee, but knee armpits I actually really enjoy, so thank you for that.
Yeah, so that's my life dilemma.
I also love, so Rachel currently is in Boston. We'll be going to Colorado. I live in Colorado, but I'm currently in Florida, so we will be missing each other, which sucks, but
yes,
c'est la
I cry.
vie.
Every time.
You should.
You know what's ironic is that, Becca, older sister that I've mentioned many times on this podcast, is going to school out there, but is transferring to Illinois, and that will be the last weekend that she is in Colorado. And my mom's actually going to be there too, but I'm not going to get to see my mom because I'll be at a wedding.
Aw, family affair.
It's all happening. It's all happening.
It is. Well,
I hope you're having a somewhat good time in Florida. Maybe at least that the weather's nice or something.
Yeah, aside from like the midday typhoon that hits between like 2 and 4 and then like goes away like nothing ever happened. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh, I was just gonna add in. So, I think Natalie and I have both had a talk, and we are going to start moving to doing one case each week. We started this podcast in smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, where no one really had a social life, and things were a little bit slower as far as work, and now that we are getting into the swing of things, I think it's just a little bit more sustainable for the both of us to be switching and doing every other week. That will allow us to, give you guys better, amazing content, be 100% focused, not have like random weeks where, life just gets the best of us. So that is just a change that we are going to be incorporating going forward. Thank you all in advance for understanding. But again, with our thoughts just being wanting to, continue doing the show. We love it so much. And being able to provide the best show possible for all of our listeners.
For sure.
I should be a politician.
You should.
Amazing. No, I'm just kidding.
So this week's episode, I also just sent you something that I 100% thought I was sending to Drew.
I was like, why did you just text me?
I wasn't done. I was like, wait, that's not.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Anyway, I have you both in my favorites, and you're like right next to that, so that's why.
Aww.
You're like the only people I text. But okay, so this week we're doing, I guess we're gonna do 2 weeks of this technically, but we're doing LA crimes. And so I'm up first, and I just interpreted what your instruction is: a crime taking place in Los Angeles. So
that was all it was. I was like, you know what, let's switch things up. It doesn't always have to be like the same kind of crime. It can be like a place or like a similar topic, or like who knows what the future will bring.
For sure. And so yeah, that's what we're gonna do as I casually look for my case.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Natalie. Welcome to Pink Collar, a true crime podcast focusing on crimes committed exclusively by women. Each week, we'll be bringing you a brand new case focusing on the psychology behind these crimes and advocating for early intervention.
Please subscribe on your preferred podcasting platform and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. For every review, we will donate $1 to the National Center for Victims of Crime.
So I am doing the case of the Hollywood Madam Heidi Fleiss. So Heidi Fleiss was born in 1965 into a large, well-to-do family. I think she was one of 6, and that's a big family. And she was raised in the greater Los Angeles area of California. Her dad has his own Wikipedia page because he was some big deal pediatrician, so well-to-do.
Isn't Mike Fleiss the Bachelor guy?
Yeah, actually, I think so.
I wonder if they're related.
Maybe. So in 1987, we're gonna fast forward through some of her early years. So in 1987, Heidi was 22 years old, and she was dating a film director named Ivan Nagy, or Nagy, I don't know. It's spelled N like Nancy, A-G-Y. And he was 27 years her senior, and so he had directed things like Starsky and Hutch, things that I've never seen, but he was a director, and he was also 27 years older than her. And so, as it doesn't always happen, but relationships with a significant age difference, power differential, sometimes people get led into situations that maybe they would not have been in otherwise, or things like that. Though it's not always the case.
It is my opinion in life that you should not date someone who could be the same age as your child.
Rachel's
unpopular opinion.
Rachel's if you are 18 months older than that person, you are breaking the law. I'm just kidding.
You mean no?
Just joking.
I think 16 years old is maybe the cutoff, because a 16-year-old could absolutely, or if you're 16 years older than someone, you could be their parent.
So a 30-year-old dating a 46-year-old would be weird to you?
A little bit. I guess I'm being too harshly judgmental.
I do think, though, the older you go, then the less, I don't know, a 40-year-old and a 55-year-old.
Yes, it certainly depends on what point in time they started dating, at what age they started dating.
For sure.
Siri. No.
Who's Fury?
Siri. Did you not hear that?
No.
Siri started listening to what I was saying and then was like, here's what I found.
Oh, gosh.
Not right now.
So through, dating this man who was 27 years older than her, Ivan, she met a woman named Madam Alex. And so according to the Hollywood Reporter, Madam Alex, who was also known as Alex Adams, Elizabeth Adams, Betsy Jensen, and Alex Fleming, among others, she was a procuress to the stars. In other words, Madam Alex ran a prostitution ring that served a bevy of celebrity clientele. And so Madam Alex took Heidi under her wing and started Heidi out as her assistant. In 2002, Heidi said that she and Alex had a very intense relationship, and Heidi described herself as the daughter that Alex both loved and hated at the same time. And so she said that Alex was both abusive and loving to her at the same time. And so another thing similar, I'm not saying that her relationship with her boyfriend was at all abusive or anything like that, but in terms of these intense interpersonal relationships and there being a power differential, I don't know, I definitely see the age and experience level is probably playing a role, as well as why her employer in this case was both loving and abusive to her, and also
too,
just not being a great person.
Right, that's a common pattern, I think, in abusive relationships, is that there is, often going back and forth between being incredibly abusive and cruel and shifting to being absolutely loving, almost like love bombing, because otherwise why, would someone stay in that relationship or give someone false give someone false hope that, this is how the relationship could look, if, often the abuse is blamed on the other person. So, if I just didn't mess up, they would be this loving person all the time. So that, I think, is actually very common in cycles of abuse.
Yeah. And I also find it interesting, and it's a good thing to kind of talk about, is that these cycles and patterns of abuse don't just exist within a romantic partnership. It can actually exist in a work situation. It can exist in other types of relationships. And that's really what we see here with Heidi and Madam Alex. And so Heidi had described that in order to learn the ins and outs of the business, she herself had to work as a prostitute or sex worker. I don't know, which term do you feel like I should be using? Prostitute or sex worker?
I think sex work is the more PC term these days.
Okay. So then Heidi had to work as a sex worker for a short period of time for Alex. And so this, I don't know if it was a Heidi kind of driven thing. I want to learn how to do this business, and so I want to learn the ins and outs of every aspect. And so choosing to take some time in working as a sex worker, or if this was something that maybe was pushed on her by Alex, basically saying hey, if you're going to work for me as my assistant and be my second hand, you need to know how each part of the business works. So that part is unclear to me. But either way, she did do that for a short period of time. While also learning from Alex, especially in the beginning, Alex found herself experiencing a labor shortage. And so in this case, Alex's sex workers were approaching middle age, and they themselves were wanting to retire, but then also the clientele that was seeking, women of a certain age and things like that, obviously may not be
middle-aged women. The horror, so far past their prime. How awful.
Yes, they were not seeking that, and so, Alex made it Heidi's responsibility to revitalize the business and recruit new, young, and attractive women to work as sex workers for Madam Alex. And so it turns out that Heidi just had a really good knack for recruiting high-end talent. And so by 1990, Heidi actually absorbed Alex's business. And according to Alex, Heidi had stolen her clientele list and basically was just like starting her own little prostitution ring. And so by 1991, Heidi had recruited over 500 women who were now all a part of her business. She had just a list of women, 500 plus, that her clients could actually either choose from, or she could kind of, assign. I don't really know the correct lingo. So Heidi described that the look that she was searching for when she was recruiting was clean cut and perfect, like she was born and raised in Beverly Hills, whatever that means. I'm imagining blonde. I'm imagining thin. I'm imagining plastic
long
surgery
legs,
in certain areas. Yes.
Breast augmentation.
Yes.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but also too, I think people appreciate all kinds of people. So
yeah, I think the
clients should have a more open mind.
Yeah, I think the gripe I especially take though is like clean cut and perfect, because it's like, well, I'm perfect, ma'am. And I was not raised in Beverly Hills.
Also, nobody's perfect. I gotta work it again and again till I get it right.
Yes, Hannah. That was a Hannah Montana reference for any Gen Zs who don't know. So with high-end clientele and high-end sex workers came a high-end price tag. And Heidi's black book, her traditional black book, was actually a 28-page red Gucci planner filled with A-list clients. And Heidi was charging $1,500 a night, back in 91 with one of the girls, or one of the women. And so in today's money, that's $2,992.95. And so almost $3,000 a night with one of these women. And as the madam, Heidi took 40%. And so, at $1,500 a night, that's $600, or in today's money, about $1,200 that she was taking a night per woman or per client situation, I guess. And so Heidi says that she made her first $1 million 4 months after starting her business. Soon, Heidi was making $300,000 a week. And so again, in today's money, that would be about $600,000 a week that she was making from this very lucrative but morally, questionable business practice.
Is it really morally questionable? I think sex work is the oldest profession, right, as they call it. But certainly I could imagine things would have operated a lot differently if it were, legal, if there were protections in place for those in the industry.
Well, I consider it, I consider it morally questionable is because in a lot of ways it doesn't sound like these women had I don't know how much autonomy they had, and she's taking 40%.
Oh, absolutely.
As opposed to, I think nowadays there have been a lot of workarounds, and a lot of sex workers are able to kind of be their own boss and manage and protect themselves, and
that's a really
take
great
their
point.
own profits. And so $1,500 a night, you may have put the sent this guy my way, but I'm the one working,
Absolutely.
So that's my thought. But so by now, making $300,000 a week, she definitely had earned her nickname as the Hollywood Madam. And so Heidi, of course, was not the only player in the Hollywood prostitution game, or prostitution ring game, rather. And so other players in the industry actually had arrangements with the LAPD. And so they would give the Los Angeles Police Department a list of their clients on a weekly basis. And that was kind of the way the LAPD was like, all right, you scratch my back, I'm acting like you're not doing what you're doing. According to Nick Broomfield, who is the director of the 1995 documentary Heidi Fleiss, Hollywood Madam, he said Heidi wouldn't play the game. She broke all the rules. She kind of did it for fun, which is why she was so successful. So one of Heidi's really big things is she was like, I will never like give up my clientele list, like even now, like protecting like who her clients were. That's just not the game that she wanted to play. And so because she didn't play that, you know, that made her much more of a target than other I don't know exactly, madams, other people who are also running similar rings in Los Angeles.
Yeah, of course. Then all the cops have like a reason to go after. This reminds me of the episode we did on the woman behind Molly's game. Yeah. I can't remember. Her last name is slipping at this point.
Not game.
No. But no, that reminds me, you know, when she got caught, she never released the names of the people who participated in her poker game. So if you guys want to check out that episode as well, it's good.
For sure. And so Heidi was arrested on June 9th, 1993, and she was charged with 5 counts of pandering. And so this callback to something I said before we were recording. So when I hear pandering, I immediately think of like when somebody panders to a community. So the first example that comes to my mind is like when Hillary Clinton went to the Breakfast Club, which is like a very, like, it's a predominantly like black, you know, urban like radio station in New York City, and like whips out like a bottle of hot sauce, and she's like, look at me. Like, just seems like very like pandering to a community.
Yeah, I don't think that's illegal, but maybe it should be.
Yes. But so yeah, when I hear pandering, I'm like, well, what does that mean? And so I was like, why is this pandering? But she wasn't arrested for pimping, which is what I would have thought. And so turns out there is a legal difference. And so I pulled this from criminaldefenselawyer.com. So very legit, as you can see. And so pimping principally consists of receiving, either directly or indirectly, a prostitute's earnings. It also encompasses the act of asking for or receiving money in exchange for soliciting a prostitute. Pandering, on the other hand, involves the practice of procuring a person to be used for or to travel for prostitution. It also includes inducing, encouraging, or forcing someone to engage in or to continue to engage in prostitution. Pimping and pandering often occur together. For example, when a defendant attempts to convince a woman to work for him or her as a prostitute, which is pandering, and proposes to share in her profits, which is pimping. So, I mean, in this case, it really does feel like she did both. Like, she was taking 40%.
Right. I was going to say, that sounds like it could fall under the legal definition of pimping, in my opinion, but...
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it could also be, you know, not enough, like hand to hand, like proof of like the money trail, maybe. Right.
Yeah, they're gonna charge her with what they think will stick.
Yeah. So yeah, she was charged with pandering. She had also in 1994, there were also federal charges that were filed against her on top of the state charges. So pandering was the state charges. I think the federal charges were about like tax evasion and not necessarily about pandering or prostitution or pimping or anything like that. And so at her state trial, none other than Charlie Sheen testified against Heidi, which I was like, it would be Charlie Sheen.
Charlie, come on. Do you have the right to be pointing the finger at anyone?
Well, here's the thing. So he testifies against Heidi saying, oh yeah, I spent I spent $53,000 a year on Heidi's business. Like, okay, bud. Like,
and shouldn't he be getting in trouble for admitting that?
I mean, I'm sure it is a, scratch my back, we'll scratch yours type of a situation in which, yeah, you testified and we won't charge you with this. So that's my guess on that. But he, testified, and I guess that was, part of some of the evidence of, hey, yeah, clearly she was running this business and keeping a, gaggle of sex workers, at her beck and call. I'm not sure what the proper phrasing would be. And she ended up getting convicted on those. So on the state charges of pandering, the 5 charges, she was convicted on 3 counts, and she ended up being sentenced to 3 years in state prison. But in May of 1996, her state conviction was overturned. I'm not sure on what grounds. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it had something to do with evidence. Because, again, the only thing that I found that they gave as evidence was Charlie Sheen testifying.
Right, and is he a reliable witness?
Yeah.
I think not. Also, too, like, what was his proof? Was there receipts? Was there ledgers? Was it just the fact that he was willing to admit that this happened? But, like, did he have names of people? What? I just see a lot of potential for holes in his testimony.
Yeah, and I also imagine, and I didn't see anything that said that any of the sex workers that were working for her testified, and so I would imagine that if none of the sex workers working for her testified, then it's hard to make, I don't know if you can hear a child crying, but it's hard to make that stick if, like, a kid is, I'm like saying a kid because I hear a kid screaming. It's hard to make that stick if like where's your proof that she was forcing anyone into prostitution,
Right. That's totally fair. And yeah, there's just a lot of room for, like, miscalculations there, and it doesn't sound like they had the strongest argument.
Yeah. But so either way, though, months later, in September of 96, she ended up being federally convicted of tax evasion, and she was sentenced to 7 years in prison. And so
wow, they really get you for that tax evasion, don't they?
Here's what, like, gets me annoyed with this, though. I'm like, all right, so I'm making money by doing something illegal, right? There is no proper channel for which I can pay my taxes through, like, with this, like, I can't just be like, oh yeah, I'm doing something illegal and, like, paying like, you guys don't tax this because it's not a legal thing to do. It just seems to me like some weird double jeopardy. Like, I can't pay taxes on it because it's an illegal thing to do, and you guys don't tax that necessarily, and so you're gonna get me for tax evasion. Like, it's not like I'm making money in, like, the real estate industry and just not paying my taxes on it.
Right.
It just seems like like trying to make as many things stick. It just seems dumb.
Too, another reason to advocate for legalizing sex work is so that, hey, government, you can be making money off of taxes in the industry instead of just, and, like, using those taxes, I think, for, like, good things, like, increasing awareness about, or, like, providing funding for preventing STIs or preventing teen pregnancy, or, making birth control free to all or available to all, And
also, if you really want people to just pay their taxes and not, like, and not, like, even if people are making their money illegally, there should be, like, a, like, hey, we won't come and get you kind of a thing where it's like, hey, I'm not making money above board, but here's my share of taxes. Don't ask questions. Don't come for me. Like, why not?
I think that puts the government in a difficult position. I guess you could say, like, oh, I'm an independent consultant, and not say what you're independently consulting on, but then maybe you're, misrepresenting yourself to the government, so that's something that they can get you on?
Well, I'm saying, like, the government should have, like, a box that's, like, makes money through nefarious means, but will not disclose. And the government's like, you know what? You're paying your fair share. I'm, like, not going to say anything. Because I'm like, I can't pay taxes on it if it's illegal. I don't know.
I love that. Joe, if you're listening...
Kamala, come on.
Yes, guys, it's groundbreaking idea.
But yeah. Anyway, so she was federally convicted of tax evasion and sentenced to 7 years in prison. And so after 20 months at the Federal Correctional Institution in Dublin, California, she was released to a halfway house, and so that was in 1998, and she was ordered to complete 370 hours of community service, and she ended up being finally released from the halfway house and I guess from federal custody supervision in September of 1999. And so when asked about revealing the names of her clients, finally, or for one time after whatever, when finally asked about revealing the names of her clients, she finally responded, "It's not my style." And so nobody knows who her clients are. I read an article that she said something like she's ready to turn on a client. I skimmed the article and didn't see like a name that popped out at me, so don't know anything. I know that she like lives maybe at like a parrot sanctuary where she like rescues and rehabs like parrots that haven't been taken care of now.
Okay. I support.
Or macaws, which might also be parrots. I'm not sure. Some
type of large bird.
Yeah, so... And she was also on like one of those Dr. Drew shows where he like tries to like save you, but also it's weird to do your doctoring things on a television platform like that. So I'm not sure how.
Yeah, the efficacy of that treatment, I think if we were to do research that we would find it is not, how many of people on like Dr. Drew or like Dr. Phil end up, actually getting... I think the whole purpose of treatment is that it's done in private. Oh my gosh. Literally, we're having a hard time. The heavens are pouring down here. You've got a kid screaming in the background. Hopefully the background music will get, but you know what? I have respect for you, Heidi. I don't respect if you were... kind of coercing women, and it sounds like you were taking a bit unfairly high of a cut, but I hope you turn things around. Hope it's going well at the birdhouse, and I have respect that you're not releasing the names of your clients. I think that the amount of money you could get for a tell-all book, or is she maybe blackmailing her clients? And that's like how she's continuing to fund the parrot house.
That would not be cool. I just like did math, because if she was making $300,000 a week and it was $1,500 a night, presumably, let's say it's one girl a night, that's 200 like women, 200 sex workers a week that she was... I don't know how to connecting.
That's wild.
That's insane.
But wouldn't they have like seized the funds? So wouldn't she probably not have any of that money unless she like stored it in a bank account offshore, which would create the dilemma again of the whole tax thing.
I don't know. I don't know how it works with tax evasion.
Washing money through the parrot house.
Could be.
I should be an FBI agent.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna like maybe sound messed up, though. She struggled with like addiction for a really, really, really long time, and so it's not like unusual to also, like, even if she did have a lot of money, like it wouldn't be unusual if like through addiction, through maybe like poor
You can
decision
end
making
up
or anything like that. Like
spending a lot of
yeah.
money, you know, in a very short period of time.
Yeah. So that's the end of my case.
Well, it was very interesting. What a way to end things. I hope that everyone involved ended up okay and got the therapy that they needed. But
yeah, you too, Charlie Sheen. You too.
yeah, you know what? I wish you peace and love. Peace and love and early intervention.
If only because your dad is Martin Sheen.
Yeah. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That his dad's Martin Sheen. It seems like such a cool. It's kind of like Tom Hanks. Like, have you heard about
with
his
like
son?
Chet.
Like, Chet. Like, I'm sorry, Chet, but
you're not Jamaican. Number one. Chill.
A lot of things you do really rub me the wrong way, and I'm just like, Tom Hanks is your father,
right? Like just imagine, like, and also like his brother,
like America's father.
Yeah, his brother is like an actor and like much more like clean cut. I just can't imagine like what Christmas is like with like Chet walking in like, hey, it's a white boy Christmas, y'all.
Oh my god. Chet. Your name is Chet. Maybe that's, that's where they went wrong. They named him Chet. It just set him on, a downwards trajectory to be, kind of a little weirdo. But you know what, Chet? I hope that you learn. I hope you educate yourself. I hope, Tom shares some reading materials with you.
How did we get here? Gosh, Chet. All right.
Well, on that note. Our music is the track Wasteland by Joseph McDade. His Patreon and our podcast sources will be linked in the podcast description below. Any mistakes are entirely our own, so check out our wonderful sources for the most accurate information about these cases.
We talk about some tough subject matter on our show. If you or someone you love is in need of support, please reach out to the crisis text line by texting HOME to 741-741. They are available 24/7 and will connect you with a trained crisis counselor.
You can also reach the National Domestic Violence Hotline by calling 1-800-799-7233. Thank you so much for listening to our show. Join us next week for another episode of
Pink Collar, a true crime podcast.